Magnum Opus 3 Alchemy video series by Stephen School Alchemy YouTube channel. Third turn of the wheel of alchemy in my Magnum Opus, the great work. I've started off by setting the temperature at 300 degrees Celsius. It's not reached that temperature yet because the light is still flashing. I normally like to have it at 340, but I've decided to reduce it a bit. Once it reaches a good boil, I reduce it to 300 because at 340 it can actually splatter a little bit out of the glass. It's a bit too much of a heavy boil. 300 degrees Celsius calms it down a little bit, but still evaporates the matter very quickly without burning. The burning is avoided. Cooking our fire in our water. Burning with water, not fire. There are some changes here today in the glass. I hear the pinging. We're getting closer to the good evaporation temperatures, getting this thing bubbling and boiling and evaporating. If you look in the dissolved portion, dissolve and coagulate, the old axiom of alchemy. If you look over here in the dissolved portion, there are changes in the glass. Look at those changes. In the old alchemical manuscripts on multiplication, some of them suggested that each turn of the alchemical wheel goes faster than the previous. The multiplications get faster and faster with each turn of the wheel of alchemy. And so we see it here in this glass. Look at the difference. Before, the water was clear, mostly clear, much more clear. Now look at it. This was imbibed yesterday. The water has already reached the color of yellow, mentioned in the writings of Theophrastus Paracelsus, if you're into reading his works, which are many. His writings were extensive. So we can see the dissolution is speeding up. It's going faster. Each time I pour off the liquid and add fresh menstruum, it goes faster than it did before. Over here we have one of my other Magnum Opuses in the sun dome. And as we can see, that one goes much slower. Much slower. Operating on sunlight. This addition of external heat greatly speeds the great work. In my alchemical Magnum Opus. Remember, in the writings of Theophrastus Paracelsus, he mentioned the sages would have had their goal much sooner if they had studied in his school. Whatever he meant that he had found ways to shorten the work. Of course, he probably did not have a thermoscientific Cimarec hot plate with magnetic stir. But look at the color changes occurring in my alchemy glass. I gave it a good imbibition that time. That's probably gonna take a minute to evaporate that down. Plus, at higher temperature, with it that high in the glass, there's more chance of it splashing out, which we don't want. But this stuff seems to cook down pretty quick. The liquid is getting darker in my extractions. The matter is dissolving faster with each turn of the wheel. It has reached 300 degrees. It's almost 300 degrees. It started flashing again. The light is solid. There it goes flashing again. Every time I say it's solid, every time I notice it to be solid, it starts flashing again. You know what I think? I wonder if it flashes periodically and just faster when it's not reached the heat yet. It's pretty hot. Let's turn it up a bit. I really didn't mean to give it that much of an imbibition right off the start. Let's pour some back in the other vessel. There we go. We'll do this in sections. We'll get that boiling. We'll get that evaporating. Let's get this heat up. I set it at 340 degrees Celsius. Temperature is climbing. I hear a little bit of pinging. We're getting closer. I see changes occurring. The liquid is darker than in the previous segments of this video series. Look at the earth. The earth is moving. Has moved. It's affected by the heat. It's moving around in the glass. It's stirred or motivated by the heat. The liquid has more of an orangish gold color. Reminds me of the term sun and moon in alchemy. Notice how they become one. They separate in the dissolution, but in the coagulation they become one, leaving a white earth and a clear liquid on top. Right now the liquid is orangish saffron colored, but after a bit of coction or cooking, the liquid ends up turning clear, leaving, in my opinion, united and fixed elements in the foliated white earth below. The color becomes more concentrated, more multiplied, if you will, with each turn of the alchemical wheel. As if the tinging power of the powder is being multiplied, or somehow becoming more potent, more concentrated. This is an interesting section of the great work, because in the writings of the sages, the old alchemical manuscripts, some of them speak of the third turn of the alchemical wheel, the third multiplication of the Philosopher's Stone. They suggested that the Philosopher's Stone had to be multiplied at least 3 times before it had power to tinge. And as this is the third turn of the Wheel of Alchemy in this Magnum Opus, I can see the color is more deep, more concentrated, orange, gold, saffron. Even the white foliated earth below seems different. It seems thicker. It seems more burnished saffron. Like it's not as white, but more still lightly goldish colored. I see changes in the water from the heat. There's some pinging or detonation. There's bubbling coming up from below. It looks like the elements are beginning to settle out of solution and become fixed, with uniting with the earth below. I can see steam coming out the top of the glass. It's starting to bubble at the surface now. Bubbles coming up to the surface. Steam, little wisps of steam coming out the alchemy glass. Beads of sweat appearing around the lower portion of the neck, climbing higher. The matter below is becoming more stirred now. More activity, more movement. Let's see if we can zoom in a little bit. Once it starts bubbling really good, a rolling boil, the evaporation becomes noticeably quicker. This is the third dissolution in this glass and the third coagulation in that glass, which means this is the third turn of the alchemical wheel. The third multiplication. According to the writings of Ripley's treatise on multiplication, we can multiply for, he seems to indicate we can multiply forever. Now, I would say that would be true, except for eventually the matter being dissolved will be dissolved. So in that case, we would have to add more matter to the dissolution in order to keep spinning the wheel of alchemy. On the other hand, in the coagulation vessel, at some point it will become full, so it would be necessary to remove material from it in order to keep multiplying. Perhaps this is what the alchemists meant in their manuscripts when they suggested keep your fire in your house, that you don't have to go to the house of another, that you don't have to trouble another, but keep your fire in your own house. As the multiplications progress, the liquid in the dissolution vessels starts to become more like the color of fire. Even the liquid in the coagulation vessel could be compared to the color of fire. Sometimes the color becomes much clearer and more pronounced, a much sharper, clearer image. Right now it's kind of cloudy, but in some of my other works, doing this same thing here, in some of my older videos, the color was much more sharper. The bubbling is starting to increase now. Getting closer to the rolling boil. More activity in the white foliated earth below, generated by the heat. It's mixing in the liquid, smoothing around. I can see more steam coming out the top now. More bubbling action. More roiling boil. More bubbles. Like unto the eyes of fishes. And remember reading somewhere years ago in an alchemy manuscript. When this matter cooks down a bit, I want to add the rest of the menstruum that's in the dissolution vessel, and then I want to re-imbibe that with fresh menstruum. The liquid level appears to be going down. The light is not flashing, which means the temperature is a good solid 340 degrees Celsius. I'm going to measure it with the funnel to see if the water level has gone down. It's gone considerably down. Considerably. It's going down. we're waiting for that to go down, let's take a closer look at the dissolution vessel. The dissolution has definitely sped up. I see a drastic change between the first and even the second turns of the alchemical wheel and the third. The third turn has drastic changes in the liquid. The dissolution seems to accelerate much faster on the third turn of the wheel. Something changes and the dissolution begins to occur faster. The imbibition in the jar was only done yesterday. (340°C), and we've got a bit of a rolling boil going on. The lower the liquid level goes, the faster it will evaporate. Notice a change in the foliated earth too. It's undergoing changes. Earlier it looked like a large solid mass, like it was getting thicker. Now it's more dispersed, like it's dissolved. We've got a good boil going. This is interesting because back to the writings of the sages, the old alchemical writings, how they said each turn of the wheel went faster than the previous, and the work went faster and faster with them multiplying it. The way it's going right now, it appears that I could turn this alchemical wheel once a day, as it is right now. Once I'm at the third turn, the dissolution and coagulation with the added hot plate is going fast enough that I should be able to spin the wheel once per day and progressing faster and faster. The main thing slowing down this portion of the great work in this magnum opus is the distillation or evaporation. Now I'm going to reduce it to 300 degrees because the matter bubbling up in the neck, threatening to come out of the glass, is not desirable. The elements need to remain in the vessel. It appears the earth in the bottom of the glass is beginning to coagulate again, like it's repeatedly going through dissolution and coagulation, dispersing and reforming. The color of the liquid seems to have lightened a little bit, as if the elements are falling out of solution and becoming more fixed with the earth below. Remember, this is alchemy of Stephen's school. Do not try this at home, not for consumption. This video does not constitute advice of any type, nor is it intended for any specific person. The wind is picking up. I've got 2 wind chimes here. I still want a third. 1 more wind chime. And I tell you, I'd like a church bells wind chime. It's pretty much what I want. We've got most of that liquid in there now. Only a little bit more. That's probably a bit high for filling the glass, but it is what it is. It is what it is. We'll cook it down gently and slowly. If it starts a rolling boil, I'll turn the heat down. The color seems a bit darker. I hear the pinging. I'm going to go ahead and start turning it down, because this hot plate holds the heat. Now, the matter in the dissolution vessel looks less shiny than before. It's more grayish, like it's lost some of its luster, which is now in the other glass. That coloring seems to have been extracted from this material over here. So now I'm ready to do another imbibition in the jar that represents dissolution. Now, look at the change occurring in the other glass. Now that the more liquid has been added, the temperature's been reduced, we see coagulation again in the earth below. It's looking thicker again. Now, over here, I'm covering this jar with a dust cover to keep out dust, debris, insects. I'll affix a rubber binder, a rubber band there to keep it in place. I'm going to take this marker pen and I'm going to mark the dust cover with the number 4. I threw the previous dust cover away that I removed at the beginning of this video because it was marked with the number 3. Now, I know that this jar is in the 4th dissolution. There will be no confusion when I come back to it later, because it's in the 4th dissolution. It's in the 4th turn of the alchemical wheel, and I've written on this side white sulfur alchemy, which means it goes to this Magnum Opus, or not a different one, because I have more than one going. As you've seen with the one that's in the sun dome, it's the same thing, just without the hot plate. It has a different heat source, a solar oven, a microcosm, a sun dome. So, let's take a look at the dissolution. The water is white is clear, cloudy. The material is more gray, a little blackish. We'll see how it looks next time we come back for the next video in the series, which will be the 4th turn of the wheel of alchemy in this Magnum Opus. Hang on while I knock over the tripod. Take a look at that saffron color, that deep, or it's becoming more of a deep orange gold. I can see the decoction going on in the neck of the flask. Look up there in the neck. The water is more lighter colored, like the elements are cooking and becoming fixed and settling out of the solution to join the earth below. It's more pronounced in the neck of the glass for some reason. Maybe because the glass is thinner there, whereas down below it's more thicker. That could be it. I still see a little pinging going on around this side. thing I have to do now is continue the distillation evaporation. Bringing this matter towards coagulation. Perhaps towards coagulation of a white stone, if you will, while the dissolution is recurring in the other glass. By the time this matter coagulates or comes close to coagulation, the matter in the other glass, the dissolution should be ready for another turn of the wheel of alchemy. I can see the elements cooking in the water as we cook our fire in our water. Burning with water, not fire. This is the third multiplication, the third turn of the alchemical wheel. I remember in the writings of Nicholas Flamel, his letter to nephew comes to mind. That may have been the writing where I read it. But he spoke of 1 ounce of the stone of the fourth order. He was talking about his Philosopher's Stone multiplied 4 times, saying that 1 ounce of it was enough to create a certain amount of gold, and I forgot the amount of gold that he quoted, but it was a lot. I want to say that the number he quoted was 100,000 ounces. I could be wrong. It never hurts to go back and reread the writings of Nicholas Flamel. Of course, I'm not saying that his work was exactly the same as mine. According to the writings of Theophrastus Paracelsus, each alchemist had their own way of doing things, so to speak. I would say it's going to take a while for this matter to cook down in the evaporation. It does look like the level is getting lower. It looks like the liquid level is going down, and I can see tufts of steam coming out the neck of the glass. I've now got the temperature set at 250 degrees Celsius, since the liquid level is high enough in the neck of the glass. I don't want it to splash out. I just want to evaporate the liquid through distillation, evaporation, leading to coagulation, which will be followed by imbibition. Since that's all that's left in this turn of the wheel is the evaporation, and it's going to take some time, I'm going to go ahead and prepare to end this video. This is video 3 in my Magnum Opus Alchemy series. This is video number 3, and it's in my YouTube video playlist, Magnum Opus Alchemy, which also has the first and second videos in it. Soon to have the third. And when I'm ready to begin the fourth turn, or the fourth multiplication, the fourth turn of this alchemical wheel, the fourth rotation, I will create that video and upload it. Until then, subscribe for updates. Thank you for watching. Do not try this at home. This is Alchemy of Stephen's School, and have a nice day.